part 2 of Daily Delivery. It is a busy, newsy day here on Thursday. Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune columnist, here with me to break down everything we know, everything we think about Mark Coyle pulling the plug, firing Ben Johnson after 4 seasons. Chip, your reaction first and then some perspective.
Yeah, I would say I'm not surprised. When you look at a number of factors with the program, with Ben's record, with the apathy that is set in with the fans, they average less than 9,000 fans per game this year. That's not good enough. No. In this day and age, they need basketball to make as much money as possible. And so I'm not surprised. I know there's the one kind of side saying, well, they should have given Ben a 5th year with more money, with revenue sharing, with better financial resources to see if he can win. And I understand people saying that, but if you look at the state of the program, it needs a jolt. It is on hard times right now. And so you're basically starting over with the roster anyways, with so many guys that are leaving because of their senior years are up. And so their eligibility is up. So this just seems like the time to really hit reset. And so I wrote a column that's going to be posted here at Star Tribune about just the state of the program. And I had a column last week, it was, in talking to a number of sources that I have over there at the athletic department, that my understanding is that Mark Coyle wants to be very aggressive with the revenue sharing, which kicks in. It's supposed to be approved by a judge in April. And once that is, schools will be eligible to spend up to $20.5 million and basically on a payroll for their athletes. What I've been told by multiple people is that Mark Coyle wants to be in the top third of the Big Ten in how much they devote to men's basketball in revenue sharing. And so when you combine revenue sharing with the NIL, it's going to be a significant jump for what they're spending on their roster now, and it'll close the gap on competitors. And they have to, because you have to make a commitment to men's basketball in a way that they haven't before. And so I think they understand that the way college athletics are right now with this revenue sharing coming on, where you're basically going to have to spend $21 million every year on your athletes, that you better squeeze every nickel possible out of football and men's basketball. And I think they realize that, and they're going to try to really invest in the program to get it off its feet.
And that's where it makes sense, right? Like the attendance was down this season, like you said. They're bottom half of the Big Ten. They're pretty low, especially if you take out all the new teams that came over from the West Coast. I think they were like maybe 11th this year, but still not good. Apathy beyond just attendance. They kind of fell out of. You kind of fall out of the public consciousness, and that's not where you want to be. And where I kind of came down on it in part 1 of this show, I kind of led with it. I was like, I'm not entirely sure it's fair to not give Ben Johnson a year with all these resources, but I still think it's the right decision, because you need a restart. You need the number at the end of the day. The numbers don't lie. 22-57 in the Big Ten is not good enough.
Yeah, fair is, that's a tricky word. It's a bottom line business. You got to win. And it's not his fault when teams came in and spent and offered guys on his own team last year 3-4 times as much as they were able to pay or willing to pay in NIL. And so, but I can tell you, he hasn't been as vocal and as frontal and as proactive about the need to have NIL as PJ Fleck, for example. I mean, you just hear that. And so now Fleck had more of a resume to take to people. When you have a program that's not winning, it's hard to go and sell and say, we got to have your NIL support, because people tend to sit on the sidelines and kind of see, it's one of those things is like, do I give it when they're successful or do I wait? Those type of things. So, but you just look at the bottom line, the numbers, and just from a purely coaching perspective, this year I struggle with his rotations and playing time and how he, starting lineups. We had a game where a player, I think it was Ohio State, where the player fouled unnecessarily, didn't know the score, free throw shooting. It just felt like watching his teams, as I wrote my column, that they're always hanging by a thread. this program. And like, that's just not a way to operate. And so,
No.
I just think when you look at the results on the court, it's easy to defend the decision, but you have to really dig deeper and look at the root causes of why this program has not just not been successful under Ben Johnson, but historically. There's been flashes. Yeah. Tubby had flashes. Richard Pitino had flashes. I don't know if Munson did, but he inherited just a mess of a situation. But nothing sustainable, not consistency. And that's just something they really have to dive into. And it comes back to me, commitment. I mean, you have to have the commitment to be great at something. And I think they're at that point where they realize it. And I I'll throw Williams Arena in there too. I compared this to a puzzle. Williams Arena is not the number one reason why this program hasn't succeeded, but it's a piece of the puzzle. Right. I mean, it's going to be 100 years old in a couple years.
Yeah.
You have to do something. Like, it's past its, expiration date. It's behind the times. I think that's going to be an area where they're going to have to invest and get a new arena. So all these things are part of the puzzle. NIL, transfer portal, revenue sharing, the arena, the coaching, staffing, support. All those things go into a puzzle that makes a solid program. And right now, they're deficient in a lot of areas.
Nicest thing Coyle could say about Williams Arena in the news release announcing Ben Johnson's firing was that it's historic. Basically, he said this, he has to say things like this, but this does speak to him understanding, I think, that there's way more to squeeze out of this. He said, "This is an extremely desirable job in one of the best conferences and cities in the nation. We fully expect to compete at the highest level on and off the court. We provide a world-class experience for our student athletes, have one of the best practice facilities in the nation, and play games in a historic venue. We offer everything that is needed to be successful, and we will immediately begin a nationwide search for our next men's basketball coach."
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the phrase extremely desirable job. I think it can be. I don't think it is right now.
No.
But I think if you say, okay, we're going to be very aggressive in revenue sharing and be top third, we're going to spend money on a coach and his staff. If you're going to invest in facilities and think about a new arena, if you think about all those things, when you combine that with the talent that's in this state that's surrounding, that campus, it can be desirable, but you have to have the commitment to make it desirable. As I think the phrase I said, you got to have the commitment that matches the ambition.
Yeah.
And so, so we'll see. I feel like this is one of the most important moments in Coyle's tenure.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. Anytime you have a hire that's this visible and this one of your marquee, your 2 or 3 revenue producing programs, it's a lot's at stake. But I think the way college sports have changed with revenue sharing starting, you got to get this right. You absolutely have to get this hire right, and you have to get the commitment right.
The way I look at it, kind of bottom line for Ben Johnson, before we maybe spin forward to who they maybe could look toward, whether it's specific names or type of coach, is he comes in at kind of an impossible time. And I think he's just the wrong coach for the wrong time. Nice guy, good recruiter, but he comes in with a reputation for being a high school recruiter at a time when things start to shift to needing to be good in the portal, needing to have those contacts, needing to be nimble. And maybe his specific skill set doesn't line up with the era that he's asked to preside over. And of course, it's like post-COVID. It's a very difficult time. So I'm not taking any of that away from them, but I do wonder if his skill set just didn't match the era that he was trying to work in.
Yeah, it was. It's been said a million times, but great guy. People that have been around Ben enjoy being around him. Thoughtful, cares a lot about the program. Obviously played there, grew up here. So it's not a happy circumstance when you have to let go someone with that profile. I think it was tricky because he came in with the idea of he's going to be a developmental program. He's going to take kids and develop, and we saw that with Pharrell Payne. The growth that player made in 2 years under Johnson, you can see it from where he started to where when he left for big NIL money for Texas A&M. So it happened at a time where there's not a long runway for that kind of approach.
No.
You have to have the money and the ability to go out and hit the portal and be nimble and flexible and rebuild. You have to be able to supplement with your roster through the portal. It almost felt like he was building his roster through the portal every year, and it's like you're going to miss too many times. They were getting guys that are not Big Ten caliber. They were not at the same caliber of guys, talent of players that left, and so it was a difficult situation for him. But I don't think it's too convenient to say blame NIL for everything that went wrong.
Yeah.
That's become the fallback. If they lose a game, well, NIL, they can't win. I mean, that's just too convenient. I mean, you can do that for eternity, right? And so, I think as much as anything, when Mark Coyle made the decision to fire Tracy Clays in football and bring on PJ Fleck, I think he looked at empty seats at at the point TCF Bank saying now, took the temperature of the fan base, saw the apathy, and his quote was, "We need to shake the tree." I think they're in that same spot with men's basketball right now. I think he saw the empty seats at Williams Arena. He heard the pushback. He saw the people sitting on the sidelines in NIL and said, "This is not sustainable, and we need to shake the tree." So I think that's what he's doing in this case too.
100%. I made that point earlier today on the first part of this podcast. Chip, a couple final thoughts before I let you go. One, where do they go from here? They're making a significant investment in terms of revenue sharing, it sounds like. Even just letting go of Ben Johnson at this point is going to cost them close to $3 million. And then you have to go out and hire a coach on top of that. This is a lot of money we're talking about. What kind of caliber coach, what type of coach, any specific names that you would be intrigued in at this point?
Open a smart checking account at Royal Credit Union to get no monthly fees, no minimum balance, and a $250 bonus. See details at rcu.org/checking bonus. No minimum balance required to obtain bonus. Offer ends 5/31/25. Insured by NCUA.
Well, they gambled with a coach who had not been a head coach before in hiring Ben. The Big Ten is too difficult. This league is so good to be a training ground. I mean, I think you need to find a coach with experience, head coaching experience.
Okay.
Someone who's done the NIL, done the transfer portal, has managed it, has success where he's coming from. So I don't think he can be an assistant. I don't think he can be, a first-time coach. I think it needs to be someone with experience. So, the names will, be thrown out there. Obviously, the guy at Drake is a hot name right now. And I know Marcus or Fuller or beat writer had the West Virginia coach. I'm not familiar with him. Mm-hmm. And there's coaches with ties to this area or this program that were thrown out there last time when Pitino was let go. So, but I just think it has to be someone with experience this time. I just think this league is too difficult and the moment's too big with revenue sharing and NIL to not have that kind of experience in that seat.
Who's going to be writing these checks? It's a lot of money, Chip.
Well, the thing is you have to weigh, okay, it's a lot of money for a buyout and go do it. But what's the cost of empty seats and people turning on your program? And those empty seats, it's not just that, it's advertising and NIL and all those things that are tied to fans being excited about a program and making money off it. And so they'll have to find the money, somewhere. Whether I know in the past they borrowed the money from the university for buyouts. That's not unusual. I don't know if that's the case right now. But it's, finances are real because starting this year, as long as this judge approves it, they're going to have to spend $20.5 million of their revenue on athletes. And so, but again, it's costly either way, right? Having arena that's half empty is costly and a buyout's costly. And you just have to figure out Mark Coyle has to figure out what was the best decision for his department long term. And so, but it'll, he always talks about, he has lists he has a desk and he has lists for all his coaches. So I assume he's, I don't know if he's contacted, but this is not something he woke up or, went to bed late last night thinking, okay, now I have to start a coaching search. I'm sure he has candidates in mind that he's going to be contacted here pretty quickly.
I would agree with that. We'll see where this all goes. Read all of Chip's stuff today on StarTribune.com. Chip, appreciate it as always. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mikey.